They told me there wasn't a seat for me. My 16-year-old daughter's voice trembled through the phone on Christmas Eve as she stood outside in the bitter cold, rejected from a family dinner in our own home. What happened next changed everything about who I thought my family was and what I was willing to do to protect my child. I'm Marianne Holt. For 7 years after my ex-husband Bryce walked out, I worked 2 jobs to give my daughter Kara stability. Night shifts at the hospital, weekend hours at a local clinic, whatever it took. While other nurses complained about overtime, I begged for extra hours. Every dollar went toward our dream, a home no one could take from us. The day we got the keys to our 2-story house, Kara spun around the empty living room, her laughter bouncing off bare walls. "Is it really ours, Mom? Forever?" she asked. I nodded, throat tight with emotion. After years of apartment living, we finally had roots. My mother, Patricia, had always hosted family gatherings before she passed. When she died, I promised to keep the tradition alive. Our home became the heart of family celebrations: Thanksgiving, Easter, and especially Christmas. I took pride in creating the warm holiday memories my daughter deserved. So when my younger sister Fiona called 2 years ago, voice breaking as she explained they couldn't make rent again, I didn't hesitate. "Stay with us," I offered. "The guest room is big enough for you and Greg. The boys can share the basement bedroom." "Just until we get back on our feet," Fiona promised. 3 months, tops. Those 3 months stretched into 6, then a year. I noticed small changes. Greg rearranging furniture without asking. Fiona complaining about my work schedule disrupting household harmony. But family helps family, right? I ignored the warning signs. I dismissed Kara's quiet concerns. I convinced myself that patience would fix everything. I was wrong. Would you have seen what was happening before it was too late? Or would you have trusted family the way I did? Comment below if you've ever had someone take advantage of your kindness, and hit subscribe if you want to hear how I finally stood up for myself and my daughter. The takeover of my home happened so gradually I almost missed it. Like a frog in slowly heating water, I didn't realize I was being cooked alive until it was almost too late. 6 months into their stay, Greg started making comments while I paid bills at the kitchen table. "Must be nice having a house this size all to yourself before we came," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "Kind of excessive for just 2 people, don't you think?" I looked up, confused. "It's not excessive. It's what I worked for." He shrugged. "Just saying it makes more sense with a full family here." A full family. As if Kara and I weren't complete without them. By month 8, Fiona had rearranged my kitchen cabinets without asking. When I couldn't find my coffee mugs one morning before work, she laughed. "The old system made no sense. This is much more efficient." It wasn't just the house, it was Kara. My sweet, quiet daughter, who'd always been the peacemaker, started spending more time in her room. One night, I found her doing homework in the dark. "Why aren't you using your desk lamp?" I asked. "Aunt Fiona said the electricity bill was too high last month," she whispered. "She said we need to cut back." The electricity bill I paid, in the house I owned. Still, I said nothing. I was raised to believe family comes first. My mother would have wanted me to help my sister. Then came the Christmas planning. For years I'd organized our family celebration, the menu, the decorations, the traditions that made the holiday special for everyone, especially Kara. But that October, my phone buzzed with a new group chat. Christmas Planning Committee, Fiona had named it. I scrolled through dozens of messages, menu plans, decoration ideas, guest lists, all decided without me. "I've taken over Christmas this year," Fiona announced at breakfast. "You work too hard. It's time someone else handled things." The way she said it, not as a question, but as a fact, should have been my final warning. My phone kept buzzing with notifications from the Christmas Planning Committee chat. 26 people confirmed for dinner, menu finalized, Secret Santa assignments distributed, but something was missing. My daughter's name wasn't anywhere. I scrolled through every message twice, thinking I'd overlooked it. Kara's name simply wasn't there. Not on the seating chart, not in the gift exchange, nowhere. Did you forget to add Kara to the Christmas plans? I asked Fiona while she decorated our tree with ornaments I'd never seen before. My family heirlooms sat untouched in their box. Fiona didn't look at me. Oh, about that. We're at capacity this year. Capacity? In my house? The dining room only fits 26 with the table fully extended, she said, hanging another new ornament. We've got Greg's parents coming, my college roommate and her husband, the neighbors. And my daughter doesn't make the cut? My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. Fiona finally turned to face me. Look, Kara's been difficult lately. She barely talks to anyone. Greg's parents mentioned how uncomfortable she made them at Thanksgiving by just sitting there, not engaging. She's shy, not difficult, I said. And this is her home. It's a family home, Fiona corrected. And family means considering everyone's comfort. The kids want to have fun without feeling judged by a moody teenager. I stood there, stunned by her twisted logic, the house I'd paid for, the Christmas I'd always hosted. And somehow I was being told my daughter didn't belong. Fix this, I said quietly. Add another chair. Fiona sighed like I was being unreasonable. We'll figure something out, she said, but her tone made it clear she had no intention of changing anything. I walked away, not wanting her to see how deeply her words cut. I should have fought harder right then. I should have put my foot down. Instead, I believed her empty promise. And my daughter paid the price. The wind outside was sharp that Christmas Eve, cutting through coats and freezing breath into white clouds. Inside our house, my house, lights twinkled and voices laughed as family arrived for dinner. I had to work a half shift at the hospital. Go ahead to dinner, I told Kara that morning. I'll be there by dessert. Kara spent hours getting ready. She wore the emerald green dress we'd bought together, the one that matched her eyes. She baked gingerbread cookies from my mother's recipe, decorating each one with careful attention. Do you think they'll like them? She asked, showing me the cookie platter wrapped in festive cellophane. They'll love them, I assured her, hugging her tight before leaving for my shift. Save me some pie, okay? I finished work early, rushing home through the cold, eager to join my family. But as I turned onto our street, my phone rang. Kara's name flashed on the screen. Mom? Her voice was small, broken. Can you come get me? Get you? Aren't you at home? I'm at the corner store, she said, 3 blocks away. I found her sitting on a bench outside the convenience store, still clutching her platter of cookies. Her mascara had run down her cheeks. She was shivering, her coat unbuttoned as if she'd left in a hurry. What happened? I asked, though part of me already knew. I got all dressed up, she said, her voice hollow. I did my makeup the way you showed me. I even brought Grandma's cookies. She looked up at me, eyes red from crying. When I got there, Aunt Fiona met me at the door. She said there wasn't room for me at the table after all, that maybe I could come back for dessert if someone left early. My heart stopped. She turned you away? From our house? Kara nodded. Uncle Greg was behind her. He said maybe it was better this way since I bring down the mood at family gatherings. I pulled her close, feeling her body shake with silent sobs. I stood there holding my cookies while everyone inside was laughing. Cousin Emma saw me and just closed the curtains. The image burned into my mind. My child, standing in the cold, rejected from her own home while family feasted inside. I didn't want to bother you at work, she whispered, so I just walked away. We sat in my car, heater blasting. Through the windshield I could see our house glowing with warmth, shadows moving behind curtains. 26 people eating, drinking, and celebrating, while the person who mattered most to me sat crying in a convenience store parking lot. Let's go home, I said finally. Kara looked panicked. I can't go back there. They don't want me. I squeezed her hand. We're not joining them. We're taking our home back. That night changed everything. The moment my sister chose to hurt my child was the moment I stopped recognizing her as family. We entered our house through the back door. The sounds of laughter, clinking glasses, and Christmas music filled the air, a celebration happening in our home that we weren't welcome to join. Kara's hand trembled in mine as we quietly climbed the back stairs to the second floor. They won't even know we're here, I whispered, guiding her to my bedroom where we could hide away from the party below. Kara still wore her coat, as if afraid to fully accept we were staying. She sat on the edge of my bed, the untouched cookie platter balanced on her knees. I spent 3 hours making these, she said, her voice hollow. Grandma's recipe. I thought it would make everyone happy. I took the platter and set it aside, then helped her out of her coat. Her beautiful green dress, the one we'd saved for months to buy, was wrinkled from sitting in the cold. I'm sorry, Mom, she said suddenly. For what? For ruining Christmas, for making them not want me around. The words cut deeper than any knife. My child was apologizing for existing, for somehow being unworthy of a seat at our own table. You have nothing to be sorry for, I said firmly. Nothing. We changed into pajamas, and I found an old DVD of It's a Wonderful Life, our traditional Christmas Eve movie. I made hot chocolate in the microwave, and we broke into Kara's cookies, declaring them the best batch ever made. Below us, the party continued. Twice, footsteps came up the stairs, pausing outside my bedroom door. Each time, they turned away without knocking. Around midnight, the noise downstairs reached its peak. Gifts being opened, cheers erupting, someone playing the piano. Through it all, Kara eventually fell asleep against my shoulder, tear tracks still visible on her cheeks. I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, listening to my family celebrate without us, feeling something shift inside me. The hurt was transforming into something harder, colder. For years, I'd been the peacekeeper, the one who gave in, the one who made room for everyone else's needs while pushing mine aside. That night, watching my daughter sleep, rejected and hurt in her own home, I made a decision. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow, I would finally stand up. Christmas morning dawned bright and cold. I woke to find Kara still asleep beside me, her face finally peaceful. Downstairs, the house was quiet except for the occasional clink of dishes, someone cleaning up last night's celebration. I slipped out of bed, pulled on my robe, and headed downstairs. The living room looked like a tornado had hit it, empty wine glasses on every surface, wrapping paper scattered across the floor, food stains on my couch. Our Christmas tree, now decorated with ornaments I didn't recognize, stood in the corner with piles of opened gifts beneath it. None for Kara, none for me. I found Fiona in the kitchen, loading the dishwasher. She looked up when I entered. "Merry Christmas," she said cheerfully, as if nothing was wrong. "There's leftover coffee cake if you want some." I stared at her, this woman who shared my blood but apparently none of my heart. "You turned my daughter away last night," I said quietly. Fiona sighed, closing the dishwasher. "Don't be dramatic. There wasn't room. In her own home." "It wasn't personal," Fiona shrugged. "The table was full. You could have done something special with her here. You know, just the two of you." The casual cruelty of it, the complete lack of remorse, made something snap inside me. "Get your things out of my house," I said, my voice steady despite the rage building inside. Fiona laughed, thinking it was a joke. "You can't be serious." 60 days, I continued. "That's how long you have to find somewhere else to live." Her smile faded. "Because of one dinner?" "Come on, Marianne. It's Christmas." "Yes, it is. And my daughter spent it crying because you decided she wasn't good enough to sit at a table in her own home. Fiona's expression hardened. We've been living here for 2 years. We have rights. You have exactly the rights I give you, I replied, and I'm giving you 60 days to get out. Greg won't stand for this, she threatened. Greg doesn't own this house. I do. If you're still watching, hit subscribe now, because what happened next shows exactly why you should never push a mother too far. The family thought I was the pushover, the one who would always give in. They were about to learn how wrong they were. You're choosing her over your own sister? Fiona asked, her voice rising. I looked her straight in the eyes. She's my daughter. I'll always choose her. My phone exploded with messages within hours. Apparently, Fiona had called every family member with her version of events, how I'd lost my mind and was throwing them out on the street over nothing. My brother Mark called first. You're overreacting, he said. So Kara missed one dinner. Kids are resilient. She didn't miss dinner, I corrected him. She was turned away at the door of her own home while everyone ate without her. Fiona says there wasn't enough room, he countered. In my house, the house I pay for, there's always room for my daughter. Next came my aunt, then my cousins, then Greg's parents. Each call followed the same pattern, minimizing what happened, questioning my decision, pressuring me to keep the peace. It's Christmas, they all said, as if the holiday excused cruelty. Through it all, Kara moved like a ghost through our house, flinching whenever she heard Fiona or Greg's voices. She'd become a stranger in her own home, and that broke my heart more than anything. A week after Christmas, Greg cornered me in the kitchen. We're not leaving, he said flatly. We've established residency. You'd need to formally evict us, and that could take months. The smug look on his face told me he thought he'd won, that I'd back down rather than go through a legal battle. He didn't know how far I'd go to protect my daughter. Then I'll formally evict you, I replied calmly. His smile faltered. You wouldn't. Watch me. That night I called Sarah, a nurse I worked with whose husband was an attorney. I explained the situation, my voice breaking when I described finding Kara alone outside in the cold. I need help, I admitted. I don't know how to make them leave. Sarah's voice was steel. We'll handle this. No one treats a child that way and gets away with it. For the first time since Christmas Eve, I felt a glimmer of hope. I wasn't alone in this fight. And I wasn't wrong to stand my ground. The next morning, I filed formal eviction papers against my own sister and her husband. The family war had officially begun. The courtroom was cold the day of our hearing. Fiona and Greg sat on one side with their attorney, shooting daggers at me with their eyes. I sat on the other with Sarah's husband, Michael, who had taken my case pro bono. All rise, the bailiff called as the judge entered. I stood on shaking legs, wondering if I was making a terrible mistake. What if the judge sided with them? What if I lost my house trying to reclaim it? The proceedings began with Greg and Fiona's attorney arguing they had established tenant rights after living in my home for 2 years. My clients have contributed to household expenses, he claimed. They've made improvements to the property. They have a reasonable expectation of continued residency. When my turn came, Michael presented the deed, showing I was the sole owner of the property. He showed bank statements proving I paid all mortgage, tax, and insurance payments. Then he pulled out the evidence I'd been gathering for weeks. Your Honor, I'd like to present text messages between the parties, Michael said, handing copies to the judge. There it was in black and white. Fiona telling Kara not to come to Christmas dinner. Greg complaining about Kara's attitude. The family group chat where they'd planned the holiday without including us. Additionally, Michael continued, we have evidence that the respondents have never paid rent, have no lease agreement, and were invited to stay temporarily during financial hardship. The judge reviewed the documents, her expression unreadable. Then she looked directly at Fiona and Greg. Did you prevent Ms. Holt's minor daughter from entering her own home on Christmas Eve? She asked. Fiona shifted uncomfortably. We didn't have room at the table. That wasn't my question, the judge replied sharply. Did you deny a 16-year-old girl entry to her legal residence? We suggested she come back later, Greg interjected. The judge's eyes narrowed. I've seen enough. She turned to me. Ms. Holt, as the legal owner of the property with no lease agreement in place, you have the right to terminate their residency. She looked back at Fiona and Greg. The court orders you to vacate the premises within 30 days. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel came down with a crack that echoed through the courtroom. Outside, Fiona caught up to me in the parking lot, tears streaming down her face. How could you do this to your own family? She demanded. You're choosing her over all of us. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and felt nothing but cold certainty. She's my daughter, I repeated. I will always choose her. I walked away, leaving Fiona sobbing in the parking lot. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. I thought winning in court would be the end of it. I was wrong. Greg and Fiona had 28 days left in my house, and they were determined to make each one count. The first attack came 3 days after the hearing. I came home from a 12-hour shift to find the house freezing cold and pitch black. Mom, the heat's not working, Kara said, wrapped in 2 blankets on the couch. And all the lights went out an hour ago. I called the utility company, expecting a neighborhood outage. Instead, I learned something that made my blood boil. Ma'am, your services were canceled today, the representative explained. A man called claiming to be authorized on your account. He said you were moving and needed everything shut off. Greg had canceled our utilities. In January, in a house with a teenager, I had to pay rush fees to get everything turned back on that night. When I confronted Greg the next morning, he just shrugged. Must have been a misunderstanding, he said with a smirk. But that was just the beginning. The real blow came a week later when a woman in a business suit knocked on our door. Ms. Holt? I'm Angela Wilson from Child Protective Services. We've received a concerning report about your daughter, Kara. My heart stopped. What report? We have an anonymous tip alleging emotional neglect and unsafe living conditions, she said, glancing at her clipboard. I need to speak with Kara and inspect your home. I knew immediately who was behind this. Greg and Fiona couldn't beat me legally, so they were trying to take my daughter away. For the next 2 weeks, our lives were turned upside down. Social workers interviewed Kara at school, questioned our neighbors, and inspected every inch of our home. They asked about my work hours, our relationship, whether Kara ever felt abandoned due to my nursing shifts. Each night, I held my daughter as she cried, terrified she'd be taken away. Why do they hate us so much, Mom? She asked. I had no answer that made sense. How could I explain such calculated cruelty to a 16-year-old? Through it all, Greg and Fiona watched with barely concealed satisfaction, thinking they'd finally found my breaking point. They didn't realize they'd just made the biggest mistake of their lives. I wasn't just fighting for my house anymore. I was fighting for my child. And a mother protecting her young is the most dangerous force on earth. The CPS investigation concluded exactly as I knew it would, with a complete dismissal of all allegations. The final report even noted the complaint appeared retaliatory in nature and recommended no further action. When the caseworker delivered the news, she pulled me aside. Between us, she said quietly, we see this sometimes in family disputes. Someone tries to use the system as a weapon. I'm sorry you and your daughter went through this. That same day, I received a text from Fiona. Can we talk? Alone? We met at a coffee shop downtown. Fiona looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, hair unwashed. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Greg went too far, she said immediately. I didn't know about the CPS call until after he made it. I would never have agreed to that. But you were fine with turning Kara away on Christmas Eve, I replied coldly. You were fine watching her cry. Fiona stared into her untouched coffee. I got caught up in everything. The house, the space, feeling like I finally had control over something. Greg kept saying you owed us after all these years. Owed you? For what? For always being the perfect one, Mom's favorite. The successful daughter with the nice house while I struggled. I almost laughed. Perfect? I worked double shifts for years. I cleaned other people's bodily fluids off hospital floors while raising a child alone. Nothing was handed to me. I know that now, she whispered. Greg's been different since the court hearing, angry all the time, blaming me for not standing up to you sooner. She reached across the table, trying to take my hand. I pulled away. I'm sorry, she said, tears welling. Can't we fix this? We're sisters. For a moment I wavered. Then I remembered Kara's face that Christmas Eve, standing alone in the cold, rejected from her own home. Being sisters doesn't give you the right to hurt my child, I said, standing up. You made your choice that night. Now you live with it. As I walked away, Fiona called after me. What about forgiveness? Isn't that what Mom would want? I turned back one last time. Mom would have never turned away her grandchild on Christmas. Don't use her memory to justify what you did. The truth was finally clear to everyone. This wasn't about a house or a dinner. It was about protecting what matters most. The day Fiona and Greg finally moved out, I took the day off work to watch them go. I sat on the porch swing, sipping coffee as they loaded their belongings into a rented truck. Neither looked in my direction. When the last box was packed, Greg slammed the truck door with unnecessary force. Fiona hesitated on the walkway, perhaps waiting for a last-minute reprieve that wasn't coming. The key, I said simply, holding out my hand. She dropped it into my palm without a word and walked away. After they drove off, I entered my house, truly mine again, and was struck by how hollow it felt, not just empty, but damaged. Walls had mysterious stains. Carpets bore cigarette burns, though no one was supposed to smoke inside. The guest room closet door hung from one hinge, but the physical damage wasn't what bothered me most. It was the lingering feeling that something sacred had been violated. This home that I'd worked so hard for, that was meant to be Kara's safe place, had become a battleground. Room by room, Kara and I reclaimed our space. We repainted walls, replaced broken fixtures, and rearranged furniture. In Fiona's old room, we found hidden cigarette packs and empty liquor bottles stuffed behind the radiator. Were they always like this? Kara asked as we cleaned. Or did they change? I paused, trash bag in hand. I think people show you who they really are when they think they have power over you. The most painful discovery came when we cleaned the attic. There, tucked behind old Christmas decorations, was a box of family photos. Pictures of my mother, childhood memories, irreplaceable moments that had been deliberately hidden away. As I held those photos, tears streaming down my face, I realized how completely they had tried to erase us from our own home. They couldn't stand seeing Grandma's pictures, Kara said quietly, because they reminded them this was our house, not theirs. She was right. And in that moment, I knew we had more healing to do than I'd thought. Spring arrived, bringing with it a sense of renewal. The house felt lighter somehow, as if a dark cloud had lifted. Kara started therapy, working through the rejection and hurt she'd experienced. I joined her for some sessions, learning how deeply the Christmas incident had affected her. I keep thinking I did something wrong, she admitted during one session. That if I'd been different, they would have wanted me there. You did nothing wrong, the therapist assured her. Some people can't handle seeing others happy. It reminds them of what they lack. Slowly, Kara began to smile again. She invited friends over for the first time in months. The sound of teenage laughter filled our home, chasing away the last echoes of tension and conflict. One evening, we sat on the living room floor surrounded by photo albums I'd rescued from the attic. Kara pointed to a Christmas picture from 10 years earlier. Everyone gathered around my mother's table, smiling. "Do you ever miss them?" she asked softly. I studied the photo, recognizing faces that now felt like strangers. "I miss who I thought they were," I answered honestly. Kara nodded, tracing her finger over her grandmother's face in the picture. "At least we know who we are now." Those words hit me with unexpected force. Through all the pain and conflict, we had discovered our strength, both individually and as a team of two. We created new traditions to replace the old: Sunday movie nights, monthly redecorating projects, a memory jar where we dropped notes about good moments to read on New Year's Eve. The extended family gradually split into camps. Some relatives, hearing the full story, reached out with apologies for not understanding sooner. Others maintained that I had overreacted, that family should always forgive. I let them believe what they needed to. "Are you still angry?" Kara asked me one night as we planted flowers in the front garden, something I'd always wanted to do, but Fiona had vetoed. I considered the question carefully. "Not angry anymore, just clear." "Clear about what?" "About who deserves our time and love," I said, patting soil around a young rose bush. "Some people think family means tolerating anything. I think it means protecting what matters most." Kara smiled, really smiled, for the first time in months. "We're going to be okay, aren't we, Mom?" "We already are," I told her. And I meant it. 9 months after the eviction, I ran into Fiona at the grocery store. I turned down an aisle, and there she was, comparing prices on pasta sauce. For a moment, I considered turning around before she saw me, but then she looked up, and our eyes met. She looked different. Thinner, with new lines around her eyes. Her clothes, once carefully chosen, seemed thrown together without thought. "Marianne," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, keeping my cart between us like a shield. "Fiona." An awkward silence stretched between us, filled with unspoken words and unhealed wounds. "How's Kara?" she finally asked. "She's good. Getting ready for college applications next year." Fiona nodded, eyes downcast. "That's good. She always was smart." Another pause. I noticed her hands trembling slightly as she clutched her shopping basket. "We're living in Westview Apartments now," she offered. Greg lost his job last month. Said he couldn't focus." Westview was known for its thin walls and management problems. Not the kind of place Fiona would have chosen willingly. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, surprised to find I actually meant it. "Mom would be so disappointed in us," Fiona said suddenly, tears welling. "In me, the way everything turned out." I could have agreed, could have twisted the knife. Instead, I found myself saying, "Mom would want us to find peace, whatever that looks like." Fiona wiped her eyes with her sleeve. "Is there any chance we could ever—" "No," I interrupted gently. "Some bridges can't be rebuilt once they're burned." She nodded, accepting this truth without argument. "I understand." As I walked away, I felt no satisfaction in seeing her reduced circumstances, no joy in her suffering, just a quiet certainty that I'd made the right choice for Kara and myself. The strangest part? For the first time since Christmas Eve, I felt truly free. "Are you sure about this?" Kara asked as we pulled into the shelter parking lot. "We could still do Christmas at home." I smiled at my daughter, now 17, and glowing with a confidence I hadn't seen in years. "I'm sure. New traditions, remember? It was Christmas Eve again, 1 year since everything changed. Instead of hosting family or attending someone else's dinner, we'd signed up to serve meals at the local homeless shelter. Inside, the community room was decorated with paper snowflakes and donated ornaments. Folding tables stretched end to end, covered in red plastic tablecloths. Nothing fancy, but somehow more beautiful than any elaborate setup I'd seen before. We put on aprons and took our positions behind the serving line. For the next 3 hours, we filled plates with turkey, mashed potatoes, and green beans. We poured coffee and handed out dinner rolls. We smiled and wished Merry Christmas to each person who came through. One elderly woman gripped my hand after I served her. "Thank you, honey. It's been a long time since someone looked me in the eye." Those words stayed with me throughout the evening. As we cleaned up afterward, the shelter director approached us. "First-timers usually don't last the whole shift," she said with approval. "Will we see you next year?" Kara answered before I could. "Definitely. This is our new Christmas tradition." On the drive home, snow began to fall. Fat, lazy flakes that melted on the windshield. Kara was unusually quiet, staring out at the decorated houses we passed. "What are you thinking about?" I asked. "Last Christmas," she admitted, "standing outside with those stupid cookies, feeling like I didn't matter." My heart clenched. "I'm so sorry that happened to you." She turned to me, her expression surprisingly peaceful. "Don't be. If that hadn't happened, we might still be letting them walk all over us. We might never have found out how strong we are." We pulled into our driveway, our house glowing with the simple white lights we'd hung together. "Merry Christmas, Mom," Kara said, squeezing my hand. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart." This time there were no empty chairs at our table, no missing place settings, just the two of us, a complete family. The envelope arrived 3 weeks before Christmas, 2 years after that fateful night. Cream-colored paper with my name written in my brother Mark's handwriting. Inside was an invitation to a family reconciliation dinner at his house. "It's been long enough," the note read. "Time to put the past behind us. Fiona and Greg will be there. They're ready to apologize." I set the invitation on the kitchen counter and stared at it for a long time. 2 years ago, I might have jumped at the chance to repair what was broken. Now, I felt nothing but calm certainty as I dropped it into the trash. Some would call it holding a grudge. I called it protecting my peace. That evening, Kara burst through the door waving an envelope of her own, but hers contained an acceptance letter to her dream college. "I got in!" she screamed, dancing around the kitchen. "Early decision! Full scholarship!" I hugged her tight, pride swelling in my chest. This brilliant, resilient young woman who had overcome rejection and hurt to build something beautiful from the ashes. She was my greatest achievement. "Mom," she said later, as we celebrated with takeout and cake, "I saw Uncle Mark at the mall yesterday. He mentioned some family dinner they're planning." I tensed. "What did you tell him?" "That we already have plans." She shrugged. "We do, right? Our shelter volunteer thing?" I nodded, relieved. "Absolutely." "He said Aunt Fiona really wants to see us," Kara continued, studying my face. "Do you ever think about forgiving them?" I considered the question carefully. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. I've forgiven them for my own peace, but that doesn't mean I need to invite them back into our lives. Kara smiled. "That's what I told him, that we're happy now. And sometimes that's enough." My wise, wonderful daughter. She understood what had taken me decades to learn, that family isn't defined by blood, but by who shows up when it matters most. That Christmas Eve, our small house filled with laughter as Kara's friends and a few of my co-workers gathered around our table. No tension, no walking on eggshells, just genuine joy and connection. The true revenge wasn't in seeing Fiona and Greg struggle. It wasn't in cutting ties or winning in court. It was in building this beautiful life without them, a life where no one had to earn their place at our table. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button now and let me know in the comments, have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting your peace? Sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't fighting back. It's walking away and building something better. That's the revenge that truly lasts.